In the news today, the student protest about uniforms, which closed a school in North Oxfordshire. Last Thursday, the Warrener in Bloxham announced they would ban girls from wearing skirts and implementing instead a gender-neutral uniform policy. What was interesting was that the students got their act together. And the next day, they organised a protest, feelings running so high that the school was forced to close for the rest of the day. Adele Bates is a behaviour and education specialist. Good morning, Adele. Are we going to have to get used to pupil power? They know how to use digital media particularly, don't they, very quickly to get their act together if they're not happy about something.
Good morning. Yes, they do. Just listening to that, how articulate some of our young people are. It's incredible.
Extraordinary, actually, isn't it? It's very interesting.
Yeah.
And also the self-awareness when she said the idea was right, but the execution not great. You could say that of a lot of things these days.
Yeah, exactly. Is she running for politician? That'd be great. So I think it's interesting because I remember when I was 12, I went to my head teacher and we were having similar debates around uniform, as you so correctly say. The arguments are long and quite boring, and we've gone over them lots of times. But when I was 12, we didn't have the, like you say, the digital capacity to really move things quickly, which teenagers have now. And that is, I mean, it's in one way, it's really exciting because teenagers, their brains are developing in a certain way at this time. And it really lends itself towards this kind of thing. So do you want a bit of neuroscience this morning?
Oh, yes. You know I love a bit of neuroscience.
Okay. So the amygdala, which is at the back of the head, I'm pointing to it as if you can see, that's the section of our brain that is responsible for emotions. It's responsible for fight, flight, or freeze. It's our sense of threat. It's our sense of survival around ourselves, our ego, and our identity. Now, this part in a teenager is really well developed. It's the first part of the brain to change. Whereas the bit at the front in the third eye, so in between your eyebrows, is the prefrontal cortex. And this part is responsible for things like analysing and rationality and stopping to reflect. Now, this is really underdeveloped in teenagers. They haven't got the full development of that part of the brain, which totally explains why, if any of you listening have teenagers in your life, why sometimes you can say to us,
That's me, yes.
Have you ever said to your teenager, "Oh, hi, you all right?" And they say, "What are you looking at?" And it's this kind of what seems to adults quite an extreme reaction sometimes. And it is literally because their brains are wired differently at this time. So then put that together with the fact that as teenagers, and this is the same in all mammals, not just humans, that the teenage time is a time for young people to start finding their own ways forward, to cut the ties with their primary caregivers, to go out into the world, to find their own identity, to find their own communities. And so you can start to see why the neuroscience supports exactly what's happened in this school. These kids have gone, hang on, something's threatening us. Nobody asked us, and I'm really pleased to hear that the school has gone back and said, actually, we should have done a consultation. Let's do that now, because that is the way to do this kind of thing. And so because they had this perceived threat, they got together with their community and they did it. And the great thing is about teenagers is if schools, I mean, some of the schools I've worked in and support, I've worked in Finland, I've worked in the Dominican Republic, some of these schools harness this power of teenagers and actually use it for good. Teenagers are an amazing resource that we could be really leaning into because they've got this way of thinking.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I find this fascinating, especially because teenagers now, and I've seen this in a number of different situations with my own family and my children, is that they are, and you'll excuse the crude phrase, but they're tooled up now with tech. They know what they're doing in a way that parents and teachers, even the so-called specialists, just don't. We don't get it. We think we do, but we don't. And they're so far ahead, as this has proven really, really well.
And imagine, I mean, think about some of the issues that we're facing now. Energy crisis, poverty, climate change, etc. We have this group of young people whose brains are literally primed to be looking outside of the box, to not be going with the norm, to be questioning authority. Like that's literally what their brains are in right now. And this is why I think the schools that do really well work with that and enable the students to be part of the solution. And there are some schools, one particular I'm thinking that I worked with, which is self-directed, where the students were able to choose what they studied, and they ended up helping in their local community, creating different products because they wanted to change the society they lived in for the better. And I mean, this is why I love working with teenagers.
Really interesting talking to you, Adele. I love the positivity because I'm very positive at the moment about future generation. I just think they'll get the world in a way that actually we don't anymore. Too world weary, I think, many of my generation. Thank you very much, Adele. It's good to talk to you. We'll speak again. Thanks for coming on this morning.
You're very welcome.